12 Japanese planes bombed a Chinese city. Trivial. The League demanded Japan withdraw her troops. Japan's own vote was the sole dissenting one. Therefore, said Japan, the League's action was illegal. It wasn't unanimous. Secretary of State Stimson was concerned. We had signed the Pact of Paris, which guaranteed China's territorial integrity. We sent an observer to the League. Japan protested, finally consented. The League investigated. Under Admiral Nomura, Japanese forces attacked 15 miles from Shanghai. The same Nomura, who later as Japanese ambassador, talked peace in Washington while his colleagues in Tokyo prepared for war. Japan marched into Shanghai with troops, fifth columnists, quislings, and propaganda, actually anticipating methods used in the conquest of Europe. Japan marched out of Shanghai at the insistence of the League. She signed a truce with China on May 4th, 1932. 4 months later, Japan moved further into Mongolia, sent her colonizers to follow the army into the conquered territory. And the puppet state of Manchukuo was in full flower. The League branded Japan an aggressor, and Japan resigned, deeply hurt. Japan moved further into China. Pausing only for breath, Japan inflated the Mukden incident into the China incident. It was not war, the Japanese said. 400 million Chinese were caught up in this incident. China was looted and shelled and put to the torch. China was bombed in this incident. Chinese forces united under Generalissimo Chiang Kai-shek were pressed back by the invaders. China moved her armies and her meager war industries far into the interior. The Chinese fought on not so much with weapons as with space and time. Few Americans knew Japan. To us, it was a land of Fujiyama, of cherry trees, exquisite gardens, geisha girls, picturesque peasants. We had opened Japan to the Western world. They had bought our machines, copied our architecture, our clothes, our popular music, and had even adopted our games, although they marched to the baseball diamond as men marching to war. And they said they played ball to build their bodies for war. Americans knew little of the might of Japan. Japan, we thought, was only an imitator. True, they had a navy, makeshift, we said, and the Japanese carefully fostered the legend their men couldn't fly their imitation planes. And yet, imitation or not, the weapons of war were there. And the warriors of Japan, still breathing the spirit of the samurai in an era of machines, adopted Western methods of warfare as they had adopted Western clothes and architecture and music. And the Japanese warriors dreamt of the conquest of Asia and then of the world. And their emperor invoked the blessings of the divine upon this dream. Italy too had dreams of empire. So Italy too created an incident in Ethiopia. Having achieved unity within by virtue of the club, castor oil, and the concentration camp, Mussolini was ready. Italy at the time had the foremost air force in Europe. Emperor Haile Selassie rallied his tribesmen, armed only with spears and ancient rifles, to oppose tanks, guns, trained armies, and planes. The slaughter continued for a little less than 2 years. The emperor appeared before the League and pleaded the protection of the great powers. The League applied sanctions which were not completely enforced. 2 years after it had begun, the war was over. Italy had joined Japan in the partnership of aggression.
Il saluto che io vi rivolgo è diretto a tutto il popolo del Giappone, tutti gli italiani, ed ha fondato un impero.
On March 13, 1938, Hitler marched into Austria. The trinity of aggression was complete. 4 years Hitler had planned and plotted. His Austrian Nazis had assassinated Chancellor Dollfuss for refusing to play the role of puppet. In defiance of the Versailles Treaty, Germany had established compulsory military service, brought its secret army into the open, had begun converting its huge industrial plant for war, had reoccupied the demilitarized Rhineland zone. Germany had practically wiped out the defeat of 1918. So Hitler marched into Austria. His conquest was bloodless.